guys, I'm back once again. This time it's not Neo, it's Diablo 4. So tomorrow is official release of Diablo 4, and then I thought it might be good to show my build with my rogue. Some people might find it interesting, or something that will guide them through their journey tomorrow once the game is out. So let's start. I'm almost level 50. I still haven't get to the world tier 3, but I'm on it. I'm working on it. I have spent probably, I would say for sure around 30 or so hours in the game, and I actually cleared a bunch of stuff. So map is huge, game is amazing, and I'm impressed. I'm impressed how well game is made. So just to short down, not to talk too much about it, let's drop on a skill tree of the assassin. So if you're planning on playing assassin, as you can see here, I have 51 points spent, even though I'm level 48, because you can get additional points just by clearing the areas. So each area you clear, you can get one skill point, as you can see here. So I would highly suggest to do that. Make sure you clear all these areas, like do the side quest, events, world events, and so on, so you can actually get these juicy nice skill points and some gold. As you can see here, it's really important too, so I highly suggest that. So let's get back again to the build that I'm running. So depending on you, you can either play range or melee. Like either of these two work, but in my personal opinion, I would say it's better to start off with range, because as a rogue, your defense is really low, and actually enemies tend to kick the shit out of you. Let's be honest. You gotta stand in front of the enemy, you gotta hit the enemy, so you have to face tank the enemies, and that's sometimes not that good, especially in the beginning. Another thing that I want to mention before I get back on this build is I'm on a world tier 1. If you wonder, wow, why you're on a world tier 1? Why you're not on world tier 2? It gives 20% more gold and experience. Yes, you're right. It does give, but after you reach level 20, enemies becoming tougher and tougher, and for same amount of time, you can kill less enemies than on a world tier 1, which means you're losing experience. Thus, I'm highly suggest you up to the level 20, you can play with on a world tier 2, and then up to the world tier 1 till you get to your max level, and then just clear that stone dungeon to open the world tier 3, or should I say unlock the world tier 3. So let's get back now. Or either way, as I said, like you can start on world tier 1, it's up to you, definitely. So about my build, what have I done here, what did I do, what have I make, how did I start? If you prefer plain melee, as I said, you should go with Invigorating Strike and Enchant Invigorating Strike right on the beginning, so you can generate some energy back when you're attacking. I'm now talking from the aspect of the melee build, if you're going to play. Then, Twisting Blades, super OP, if you're looking for a melee build. And again, pick up one of these two, depends on you. If I would play melee build with daggers and using Twisting Blade, I would focus on dazing the enemies, daze, and then kicking them off with a Twisting Blade. Or we can use Flurry, which is like a sort of AoE, and it's pretty nice. This is most important when you get to the melee builds. You gotta have this. You must have this, because you want to reduce the damage that you're face tanking. You gotta reduce the damage. And then here I would go for the Shadow Stab. Of course, at least 1 point in dash. It's a really good. And of course, Weapon Mastery, I would give the 3 points. Even though this is passive, it's really worth to get. Like, you getting really nice boost in the terms of damage against vulnerable enemies, pardon me, healthy enemies, and so on. Here, Poison, Trap. Yeah, I'm using that currently for my range build. But if you would play melee build, I would go for a Concealment, Stealth, or perhaps maybe Smoke Grenade. Either of these two will work, because you want to daze enemies, and then you want to get back here. Oh, Twisting Blade, and then Enemies that dazed while impaled with a twisting blade. That also works. Then you can actually boost your damage with in the terms of enemies who are dazed receiving more damage. There is a lot of ways that you can build around. And then from here I would go to the poison, cold, or shadow imbuement. It's up to you, absolutely. If you like poison, you can go for a poison imbuement. If you like shadow, you can go for a shadow imbuement. All of them are good. I cannot tell you choose shadow because it's supreme. No, I mean, it depends really on you. I don't want to tell you what you want to do. Do what you like. So it's absolutely up to you. And then here, when you get to the ultimates, shadow clone, pretty decent, pretty good for a melee build. That trap, I did test it out. I'm not very much impressed, but I'm impressed with the range of the arrows. I'm gonna get back on that my range build later on. And then here on key passives, if you're going to play the, I would say, melee build, you can go for a cutthroat maybe. It absolutely depends what you're looking for, but I would actually go for either Victimize or Momentum. Absolutely, up to you. Now let's get back about my build, what I'm running here. Since I decided to play range build, and I went right away for a puncture, so it throws blades at a short distance, blah 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 blah, yada yada. I'm not going to read you what the skill says here, you can read it for yourself. And then I did choose enchanted puncture. It's gained 2 energy when puncture damage a crowd control enemy. What is the crowd control enemy, if you wonder? That means when enemy is dazed, stunned, or any sort of CC they have applied on them, they are crowd controlled, and then you are gaining certain bonuses when the enemies are crowd controlled. You don't need necessarily to get fundamental puncture at the beginning. You can get it later on, but it's if you can spare some points, I highly recommend. Again, bear in mind, you don't need to put 5 points on the beginning right away in a puncture because, oh, I need this, this is my right click attack. No, you don't. 1 is enough. Believe me, I actually maxed out this recently, maybe a couple of levels ago. Another thing that I will show you as well after this, when we get to my gear, where I show you my gear, is these things here: basic skills, core skills, agility skills, subterfuge skills, imbuement skills, ultimate, and key passives. So there's also another thing that you should just have somewhere, remember, because we'll need that at some point. Now in my core skill tree here, I did actually went for barrage. Why barrage? Why not penetration shot? Why not the rapid fire? I did test out rapid fire. I was not that much impressed as so with a penetrating shot, but believe me, barrage, it's something. Oh my god, it's so satisfying. Of course I will show you the gameplay and all that, but just look at this. Barrage unleash 5 arrows that expands blah 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 blah, and ricochet in between the enemies dealing the damage. It's super good. And then I would right away go up to these two, enchanted barrage, which says it has a ricochet chance is increased to 100% for arrows that damage vulnerable enemies or a critical strike any enemy. And then this one, every third cast of barrage makes enemy vulnerable, which means if you have a bunch of enemies, you cast barrage and your arrows will go between them, and the third one will actually make the enemies vulnerable. God damn this goddamn word. And as you can see here, look at this. This is why I told you to get this at the beginning. Hitting an enemy with at least 2 blades at once makes them vulnerable for 2 seconds. And the puncture throw 3 blades in a spread. Ah, right? That's good. So now from here I would not pick up anything else, none of these passives. I would get here and I would put 1 point into dash. As I said, I recently maxed this out. You don't need to max this out. You don't need any additional enchantments on the dash. Dash itself is enough at the beginning. Later on you can max it out because it's pretty handy, because you can daze your enemy, you can slow your enemy down and so on. I forgot to mention, when you get to slowing down, this puncture is pretty good because it's slowing down your enemies by 20% all the time, pretty much. Weapon mastery. Look at this. Bows dealing 12% increased damage to the vulnerable enemies, and that's what we are building around. Crossbow dealing 15% increased critical strike damage. Oh, cool. Right. You can choose. I suggest you playing with both if you can. Of course, it's up to you. You can play with a crossbow. Crossbow is slightly slower than a bow. I'll show you. Now, when we get to the subterfuge tree, I went for a poison trap. And the poison trap are really nasty. So I would actually max this out when I can. So as soon as you are able, max this out because you want your poison damage to be as much as possible. You can put down 4 trap at once. It's super cool. And then enchanted poison trap, of course, it's knocking down enemies for 1.5 seconds. Definitely worth to get. And counter poison trap. This is not necessary to have at the beginning, but it's really handy to have once you unlock the imbuement subtree. I would call it. Let's call it that way, subtree. When you get to the imbuement, you can continue building around poison if you want. You know, that's pretty cool. But I'm highly suggest you to try out at least Shadow Imbuement. You will not regret, people. Trust me, this shit just melts down the enemies and it's ridiculous. Especially when you pair it with a certain legendary passives. Holy moly. And as I said, you don't need to get this right at the beginning. You can only have 1 point in the Shadow Imbuement. And later on, I will show you something funny, unique. Shadow Crash and the Consuming Shadow. Pretty good, pretty nice to have. So each time you kill an enemy with a shadow damage, you generate 30 energy. Bro, 30 energy is a lot. And this lucky hit, you wonder probably, oh, shadow damage has up to 10% chance to stun for 1.5 seconds. Okay, that means 1 out of 10. So if there are 10 enemies, 1 might be stunned with this. Oh, that sucks. No, it does not. Trust me, I will show you why. That's why I'm telling you, you should upgrade this later. Now, when we get to the ultimate, I choose Rain of Arrows. Rain of Arrows is fucking amazing. First, it looks fucking OP. It looks dope. The animation is goddamn. And when it get to the enchantments, I would just go for the first one because the second one is useless in my opinion. I did test it out, but it's not worth investment because I can knock down enemies with poison traps. I don't need my ultimate to knock enemies down. You know, these two things, you know, somebody might not know this, but look, while moving you gain 5% energy. You can max out this one, but you don't need necessarily. I would actually first go for the haste because haste super good. While at above 50% of the maximum energy, you have increased movement speed. When you above, pardon me, when you below, you have increased attack speed. Pretty nasty and pretty good. And here I choose exposure because I'm, you know, playing a lot with the traps and grenades. So that's actually my main thing that I choose and the reason I choose that. Let me get back to this Shadow Crash here. You would probably wondering, oh wow, this sucks. No, it does not. Just think why, okay? I can cast my Poison Trap, I can put my Shadow Imbuement, and I can launch the Rain of Arrows. When I launch the Rain of Arrows, I'm launching billion of the arrows at once. Which means that this chance of the 10% stun chance increasing from the 10 to 100% for at least one enemy. But I have actually experienced that I stun 3-4 enemies at once. So it's pretty good. So that would be something about my build. And now let's get back here. If you're playing with assassin or rogue, my bad, pardon me, you would like to increase as much as possible your dexterity, of course, because it's increasing your skill damage, increasing your critical chance and critical damage. They have not said here, unfortunately, how much, but from what my friend has told me, it's a 0.2% critical chance per 1 dexterity point, which is really good, not gonna lie. If I'm maybe wrong, yeah, please do correct me, but that's the information that I got from my friend. Now, when it gets to the gear and specialization, you will unlock this at some point, and you want to go for combo points. If you wonder what the combo points means, and your basic skills now generate combo points, and the core skills consume combo points for additional effects, what is that? Let me show you what that is, so you don't get confused. What is that? Look at this here. Combo points increase damage and arrows fired 1 point, 2 point, 3 point. There you go. So that's what that means. So you are not confused. Oh, what the fuck is this? This is useless. No, it's not useless. It's pretty useful. So see, this is core skills. This is basic skills. So basic skills increase in points, and the core skills actually having this additional stuff, as it's saying here in a specialization. So once you unlock it, I would go for a combo points one. You can try these too if you like, but they're nothing spectacular. Back to my character. You can see I have a legendary gear. You'll be able to drop yourself legendary gear around level 15 and above, if you're lucky enough, and you'll have plenty of them. So when it gets to the gear, what do you want on your gear as rogue? At least in my opinion, what I like, what I prefer is I like to have inhuman skill effects, something that make enemies vulnerable. For example, then this is pretty cool, like magic bubble that is spawned around me, so enemies actually cannot deal any damage to me from the range while I'm standing inside it. For example, this thing here you can get on your weapon. It's super handy. It says using an agility skill to reduce the cooldown of your next subterfuge skill by 40%. Really handy, believe it or not. So what does it do? Pardon me. It's your agility skills. Using agility skill reduce the cooldown of your subterfuge, which means, pardon me, using my dash, which is agility, I will reduce the cooldown of my poison trap. Pardon me. Then here, when I'm casting imbuement skill, I trigger imbued explosion around myself, applying imbuement effects, dealing 300 damage on the same type. This is pretty nasty and pretty handy. Damage a poison enemies with a shadow imbuement skill has up to 75% chance to create toxic explosion. I will also show you this. It's pretty handy, pretty nice. So again, dealing direct damage to vulnerable enemies has up to 41% chance to daze them, and so on and so on. So I'm building around poison, shadow imbuement, explosion, making enemies vulnerable, and so on and so on. I guess that was everything I wanted to show you, or about my assassin, my build, and then I will show you something, some of it in the action. I'll show you my assassin, my rogue in the action. before that. So I would like to thank everybody for taking your time to check out the build that I made, and for being here supporting me for all these years. I have recently reached 1000 subscribers. I'm actually going to grind even harder, and I will keep up. I'll be streaming, of course, on my Twitch channel and trying to bring as much as possible content to my YouTube. So thank you very much once again, people, and I'll see you soon with my end game build with Rogue in Diablo 4. Take care.